Policemen are friends. The people are with you. That was the chant overnight in Tegucigalpa as several units of the Honduran police said they were going on strike. Opposition protesters applauded the police, including the elite Cobra Brigade, as they withdraw to their barracks. They say they will not return to work until there is a transparent conclusion to the country's election crisis. They accused their chief police of playing politics and called on middle-level officers to replace them, as they criticized the army for failing to act.
1. We demand respect for the will of the Honduran people expressed at the ballot box, with a recount of each and every vote in order to make this election transparent and to satisfy the people. 2. We demand the Honduran armed forces, our brothers, assume their constitutional role, given their decision to remain silent. 3. We want to make clear to the international community and the Human Rights Commission that our position is to remain in our barracks until this political conflict is resolved. 4. We express our idea that at the end of this process, whoever results is elected as the constitutional president of the Republic, we will continue doing our job, which is to ensure peace and security for the people. 5. We repeat that our action has no political motive. We will simply want peace and tranquility, and we will only achieve this if we respect the will of the people who are sovereign. God, country and service, the basic ranks of the Honduran National Police. We want peace for our country.
After 8 days of waiting, Honduras Supreme Electoral Court finally presented their official results for the presidential elections, but they stopped short of declaring a winner. And the opposition still do not recognize the results. We have more details in the next report.
After finishing the special count of 1,000 records that had irregularities, the president of the Supreme Electoral Court, David Matamoros Batson, presented the final results of the process.
The data we have at the moment is that citizen Juan Orlando Hernandez Alvarado has at this moment 1,410,827 counted votes for a total of 42.98%, while citizen Salvador Alejandro Nasralla has 1,358,000.
The candidate from the opposition alliance against dictatorship, Salvador Nasralla, said that they won't accept the results until all irregularities from the 26th of November elections are clarified, such as the fall-downs of data transmission system.
To be able to legitimize the government of current dictator Juan Orlando Hernandez, people need them to check the 5,174 records they physically received. They manipulated the system. So to me, what the Electoral Court presented has no importance.
For the observation mission from the European Union, the process hasn't finished. The latest numbers, they said there's still a lot of doubt and that they will wait for the disputes.
The first point we believe is important at the moment is that the process is not finished. They finished the special inspections, but the process is far from being over, because now comes a period in which candidates and parties can file their petitions.
On the other hand, the American States Organization observers concluded among a series of situations that there was a proven manipulation of votes in the provinces denounced before by the opposition alliance.
We saw massive transportation of voters in different polls of the country and also purchase of votes in 3 departments. At the end of the election day, there was no clarity about the closing time of the polls.
Leaders of the opposition alliance announced they will continue to put pressure until those 5,000 records registered during the fall-down of the system are verified.
Our correspondent Heather Geese joins us now from Tegucigalpa on the phone. Heather, how significant is this action by the police? Has it spread to other parts of the country?
Right, so this started in Tegucigalpa with the Cobra unit of the National Police, an elite force that has been present in riot lines that have been containing protests over this past week. And over the evening last night, a number of other officers from other units joined that protest, including the Tigres, another elite special force, traffic officers, and other police officers. This has also happened in San Pedro Sula, the financial capital of Honduras, and we've heard reports of police standing in solidarity with the people in other parts of the country. So I think that in addition to the police saying that they are
not going to be in the streets. They're not going to confront protesters. They're not going to enforce the curfew that's been in place since Friday. This is also very symbolic because for the Hondurans who have been resisting and demanding that their vote be respected and that the Supreme Electoral Tribunal carry out a transparent vote counting process, this has really come as a boost to their energy. It's really quite important symbolically to help people continuing the resistance that they're already carrying out. And that was visible last night during the cacerolazo, the noise-making protest that people have been doing for the last 3 nights. During the curfew, they just bang pots and pans, play music, shout chants against the president, anything to make their voices heard, even though this curfew is in place. So after the police rebellion started last night, that cacerolazo was quite vibrant, and people were even going out into the streets, going on little parades through their neighborhood, even though this curfew is in place.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you very much, Heather.
That was Heather Gies from Honduras. So in other news, we also have in Brazil, protests are taking place across the country against President Michel Temer's proposed reforms on the social security and pension system. One of the biggest protests is taking place in the southern city of Porto Alegre. President Temer has already pushed through a reform on the labor code. The pension reform has always been a central plank of his neoliberal agenda, but it requires an amendment of the Brazilian constitution.
In reality, this stops workers from being able to retire before they are 70 years old. It makes it very difficult for Brazilian workers to get a pension because of the periods of unemployment. For example, among young people in Brazil, there is now 30% unemployment. Overall, it is 13% of the workforce. So people go many years without any pension contributions.
Our correspondent Ignacio Lemos is in Porto Alegre and sent this report.
We are in downtown Porto Alegre, where another demonstration is taking place against the pension reforms that Congress is looking to approve next week. Social and workers' organizations are also protesting in other cities of the country to prevent this law from passing, as it requires a minimum of 44 years of contributions in order for people to retire and get their pension. Many around Brazil have said this means they are condemned to die without retiring. Demonstrators in Porto Alegre also heavily criticized the congressmen who traveled to Brasilia from here in order to take part in the coming voting session that responds to the economic measures that Michel Temer's government is pushing for. Protesters also took the streets in other areas of Porto Alegre. We'll keep informing you as this long journey of demonstration continues.
Ignacio Lemos from Brazil. Yeder Vieira Lima, a former minister in Michel Temer's cabinet, is facing charges for money laundering, along with his brother and 3 others. Brazil's Attorney General presented charges to the Supreme Court, which include details of an investigation in which security forces found Vieira's footprints in bags containing 13 million euros connected to a corruption case. Vieira resigned from his post in May 2016 over this scandal. Haitian same-sex couples Max and Dennis and Lobenz Raphael, with their adopted son, are sharing their personal stories to inspire others in the country where there is no gay marriage or adoption. The gay couple live in Port-au-Prince and spoke openly about their experience with Haitian non-profit HIV and support and prevention organizations, Serovier Foundation.
Human rights organizations defend human rights, but not for gay people. They exist to defend rights for everyone. But when a situation arises involving gay people, they're not there. But they say they're Christian. Come with me.
Certain organizations like Serobi support us when we suffer from acts of violence, as I did. But the national police provides no such protective guarantee. On the contrary, for them, it's all our fault. We have no rights. We have no place to express ourselves. If you come forward as gay, you get thrown out without any help.
More news in a minute. Stay with us. Colombia's National Liberation Army, or ELN, has warned once again that the continuity of the ceasefire agreed with the government is at risk due to serious and inadmissible violation of the national ceasefire.
Even though the sides have managed to keep up, and this has brought humanitarian relief to the regions most affected by the conflict, there have also been reports during the 2 months of serious incidents that put its continuity at risk.
In Guatemala, in the Reina zone, Uspantan, the 4th community hydroelectric plant was built thanks to the group effort of hundreds of families that have lived without power for more than 40 years. The citizens say that they have achieved power autonomy with this project.
The air turbines of the new community hydroelectric opened in La Gloria village, in the Reina area, Uspatán, Quiche, that will benefit more than 100 families of the region.
We
are inaugurating a great project that was a sacrifice for the community, but we are very happy to achieve this project that is now illuminating each one of the houses.
It is the 4th
we have achieved with these projects are a great example of how the communities can have self-autonomy to have their own power, and that strengthens the togetherness of the community.
The families say that for 4 decades they have lived without power, and they applaud the project's completion. They say that they accomplished it with the hard work of the people.
What we did is support each other. There were women, men. If the husbands weren't there, the women helped out.
They emphasize that this work was designed without harming the environment, contrary to what is promoted by the state, that has been criticized for the strong environmental damage that they caused.
We took 10% of the river, 600 meters, and we returned it without any type of pollution, being careful that it doesn't impact the water.
This region operates a hydroelectric with state funds called Palo Viejo. They said, however, that after 4 years of operation, none of the affected communities have power.
3 gas workers in Uruguay are holding a hunger strike to reject wage cuts and layoff policies of Petrobras, the Brazilian company and owner of Montevideo Gas. The workers are now in the 4th day of their hunger strike and are said to be feeling the initial negative effects of lack of food. Petrobras had sacked 25 employees without notice following a period of intense negotiations between the 2 companies inspiring the protest.
This is the only way we can make the company understand that what they're doing is wrong. They're trying to destroy the gas labor union by destroying 2 companies and getting into legal problems with the Uruguayan state. This is our last resort. We have done everything we can. We protested in front of the companies and ministries. We camped out and chained ourselves in front of the Brazilian embassy. This is radical, but this is our last chance.
Caracas Museum of Modern Art is hosting the Biennial of the South for the 2nd time, an art exhibition with the theme Peoples in Resistance. It has work on display from over 100 artists, spanning experimental documentary, paintings, photography, and live performance art. Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, went along to find out more.
Peoples in Resistance is an exhibition where politics and artistic expression are interwoven. Whether it's dealing with gender violence in Namibia through photography or the digital revolution in Iraq through moving images, members of the public are able to explore works from all over the world. The exhibition will include conferences, workshops and special talks with artists from both home and abroad. A major contribution to the exhibition is of course Venezuela's homegrown talent. Exploring the theme of capitalism and its effects on marginalized communities, local artist Ricardo Garcia spoke to Telesur about the importance of his work.
Peoples in Resistance comes from things like this. To resist means to visualize the characters that are normally not visible, or when they are just important because they are a part of the news. The people that I have painted and brought here today are in this context of resistance, of visualization of cultures, of what happened to us, to the people of the South, so we must show these people. For me, a place like the Biennial of the South lets me say things that in other places I am not allowed to say. It is fair to bring them here with me and tell a little of their story, of what happened far from the big scenarios.
Work exploring food shortages in Venezuela sit alongside pieces highlighting racism and police brutality in the United States. The importance of freedom of expression was high on the agenda, and not just for the artists.
Well, I think these are good places to conduct confrontations on a political level.
Seeking to create a space for artists outside the mainstream markets, the exhibition is in its second consecutive year, running at Caracas's most respected artistic institute. It will be running until February next year. Freddie Gillingham, Telesur, Caracas.
And we'll be back very soon. Stay with us. In a move expected to cause outrage across the Middle East, the U.S. President Donald Trump has told Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas that he intends to relocate the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The move would mean recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, one of the most contentious issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The news reported by WAFA, the official news agency of the Palestinian Authority, came as the U.S. Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, was meeting NATO foreign ministers in Brussels, where German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel commented on the situation.
A whole lot of member states, including us, have expressed their concerns that the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel will not calm the conflict, but rather escalate it. It's in everyone's interest that that doesn't happen. Therefore, we, as Germans, among others in the EU, are firmly convinced that we must maintain the two-state solution as a goal. That means a secure Israel, but also an independent and viable Palestinian state. Therefore, unilateral steps to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and that includes East Jerusalem, I believe that would be a very dangerous move.
We now go live to our correspondent Jorge Gestoso in Washington, D.C. Hello, Jorge. What else can you tell us about Trump's decision?
We know not that much, because the only thing that so far here in Washington is being commented is that that telephone call took place. There's no specifics on the timing, the eventual timing of the moving. And so far in the previous days, the press secretary here at the White House has said that the president was assessing all the pros and cons of that move and take a decision. So not necessarily it has been presented as a done deal. And what the president has said is that he tries to fulfill one of his campaign promises.
Do we have any word on any reactions in the U.S.? Can you hear us? Oh, I think we lost contact with our correspondent Jorge Gestoso from Washington. We'll be coming back with more information as soon as we have it. On other news in Spain, the Supreme Court has withdrawn European arrest warrants for ousted Catalan President Carles Puigdemont and 4 other ex-ministers. The announcement was made citing the willingness of the Catalan leaders to return ahead of Catalonia's December 21st regional election. The court said the European-wide warrant would complicate Spain's legal probe, and its removal allows the country to gain full control over the investigation. Our correspondent in Madrid, Vincent Montagut, has more details.
There's a new turn in the independence process of Catalonia as the Spanish justice and the Supreme Court have decided to abandon the European detention order against sacked Catalonia President Carles Puigdemont and the 4 government members that left to Brussels with him more than a month ago. It's the Supreme Court that made this decision, although it was another Spanish court, the National Audience, that filed a petition alleging rebellion and sedition crimes, as well as embezzlement of public funds. Back in Brussels, the Belgian courts are studying Puigdemont's possible extradition to Spain. the Supreme Court is now accepting the possibility that Belgium could reject the European detention order, even limited. This is because the rebellion charge, the most serious one, doesn't exist in Belgium's penal code. Carles Puigdemont and his 4 government members announced they want to return to Spain, but if they do, they will be detained. Back to you in the studio.
Vincent Montagut from Spain. The United States has withdrawn from a United Nations pact to improve the handling of migrant and refugee situations, deeming it inconsistent with its policies. In September 2016, the 193 members of the UN General Assembly unanimously adopted a non-binding political declaration called the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants, pledging to uphold the rights of refugees. Under Trump and his America First policies, the United States has withdrawn from several global commitments made under the administration of President Barack Obama. 5 Native American tribes have joined to file a historic lawsuit against President Donald Trump, Interior Secretary Ryan Sink, and several other members of the administration. The move comes after Trump announced on Monday to open protected federal lands to mining, logging, drilling, and other forms of extractions. Utah's Bears Ears National Monument, created by Barack Obama in 2016, will be reduced to just 50% of its current size, and the 1.9 million acre ground Staircase Escalante National Monument by 50%. Now let's take a look at some of the other stories that are making headlines around the world.
1 month after announcing his resignation while in Saudi Arabia, Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri has officially withdrawn his resignation. In a statement, Hariri said the situation had been resolved after all members of the government agreed to stay out of the affairs of other Arab states. The United Nations top human rights official said Rohingya were continuing to flee the northern Rakhine state in Myanmar, where he said the crime of genocide by state forces could not be ruled out against the Muslim minority.
Considering also that Rohingyas self-identify as a distinct ethnic group with their own language and culture, and are also deemed by the perpetrators themselves as belonging to a different ethnic, national, racial or religious group. Given all of this, can anyone rule out that elements of genocide may be present?
Leaders from Africa and Europe have agreed on an emergency plan to start the evacuation of as many as 700,000 migrants from Libya. According to the chairman of the African Union Commission, officials from the 2 continents, along with the United Nations, will work with Libya to identify and rescue migrants who are spread among 42 camps in Libya.
Illegal occupation of private farms, a wave of cattle theft, and violent death in the Laikipia County over the last dry season, and several farms were also attacked as part of an extended fight between security forces and Maasai farmers. We have all the details in this next report from our special correspondent, Oscar Epelde.
We're in one of the private ranches in Laikipia, which according to its owner George, is 49,000 acres, like other farms in the area. Mugi combines the meat cattle raising with the conservation of wildlife and tourism. The current owner, the 3rd landowner of the ranch, is a white man who lives on the other side of the sea. In the dry season, tens of thousands of cattle from Samburu pastures invaded the farm. These ranches had electric fences, but the shepherds, coming from drought-hit lands and working to fulfill the needs of their cattle, trespassed on the ranch which provoked other invasions by the armed forces. This clash caused a bloodbath.
Gangs of 50 to 100 people running around, all armed with assault weapons. Basically, it looked like an attempt to make the whole farm and conservancy unviable to manage.
Wild animals are also suffering the consequences. According to the guide, Mugi lost over 90,000 of his roughly 2,000 buffaloes because of stress and diseases that the cows brought.
With civilization and after a lot of these ranches being converted into conservancy, we are now receiving a lot of wildlife back into our conservancies, and making Laikipia one of the very few regions in the world where wildlife population is increasing.
And business opportunities of ranches are also growing, not only because of tourism. The management has started a new program of cooperation with communities. They're proposing that the community members bring healthy cows to the ranch so they can eat here and gain up to 80 kilos in a few months before being taken to the slaughterhouse and sold at a price by kilo. The ranch charges a fee for the use of their grass and keeps 10% of the price of the animal. This new business initiative sheds light on the little profitability shepherds get from their traditional cattle raising. But it also reflects and confirms the enormous inequalities in the access to resources. When the oxes eat from only one person, they live in an enclosed paradise on a similar piece of land where tens of thousands of Maasai families share with their cattle.
And we've come to the end of this midday news brief. This and many other news, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
A sign of resistance to hatred and injustice.